You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Uncanny X-Men #1, written by Gail Simone, art by David Marquez, colors by Matthew Wilson, letters by VC's Clayton Coles. You get the team. The team is pretty cool. It's very small. Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, Nightcrawler. I think that's a good team. I mean, if you're going to go with teams, I like that it's manageable size and all the characters are cool. Though, the Cajun talk gets to me after a while, but it didn't get to me just quite yet in this one.
Rogue's talk was bothering me.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it would be. Sugar?
Yeah.
I like when she says
and she's saying y'all. When you say y'all, to me that implies more than one person. She was saying it about one person.
Yeah, you all.
Yeah,
that is
you all.
True.
She was talking just about Wolverine. She was calling him y'all.
I don't like it. You end up where Dr. Ellis shows up a little before it says shows up at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters in Westchester, comes into Rec House, ends up where, and I'll tell you this is a oversized #1 issue. All of them have been. Some of them have read a lot slower than others. This isn't bad. It's slow, though, to me. And I told you that it's almost as if this was an issue that was meant to be 24 pages, but it had to be oversized. Like Gail Simone wasn't told. So what she said was, have people talk a little more each scene, because these scenes end up where there's a lot of yakety yak that ends up being superfluous. It's not really needed. By the way, I said that so that we seem fancy like Jason and Ruben, but it feels like, okay, I get it. Like some of these scenes that we go through, we could say easily here in this first scene that takes a bunch of pages that I could say that Dr. Ellis shows up. She wants to destroy the mansion. She goes, checks out Cerebro, says we're going to burn it to the ground. And then they have a prisoner who we would assume is
they're essentially turning it into a prison. All the rooms and everything. Yeah. And destroying other parts of it.
I like that because it is kind of like really a crap talking move. Like she's going to do it. But again, a lot. But if you look at it, word bubble galore.
Oh, yeah.
To have the idea of Ellis say, oh, don't call me that. Call me this.
There was a lot of that. I thought it was pretty funny, but it definitely was like the guy couldn't figure out what to call her because she kept telling him.
He was a little nervous.
But he was nervous. It was okay, but it went along.
She wants to be called Warden. He's calling her ma'am and Dr. L. And she's like, no, call me Warden. He's like, yes, ma'am. I mean, Warden it is. And then you have Philip. Are we alone in this mausoleum? He's just like, there's just conversations that aren't going anywhere. It is a Gail Simone thing. It's kind of natural, I guess, if you're there. But
if it were a movie or a TV show, this would be great. I'd be laughing.
And that's
I'd love
the thing.
You know?
When you end up having that whole deal, a TV show, though, is able to do it a little because the different voices.
Yeah, and you're walking through a building. It takes
charisma.
Time.
You know what I mean? So you end up where it does flow better than being hit by the same word bubbles. And when I read, I don't hear voices. I just see it, and I'm like, they are really saying a lot of stuff for not much going on. But then when we go past that, we go to 24 hours ago to Mexico City, where Wolverine goes and visits his man Miguel, who gives him some booze, and then ends up talking about, oh my God, you have died. What's it like? And Gail Simone does a good job in this. A lot of people were kind of taken aback at some of the Krakoa references, some of the things that were real heavy Krakoa stuff, because a lot of people just want to forget it and go on. This is just the idea that Wolverine did die and come back. And you end up where this Miguel's like, what's it like? What's it like? I'm dying. I want to know. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of darkness. Really? That's it? And he says, I kind of miss it. It was quiet. That was fine.
It's just nothing, basically, is what he says.
And you get the idea. I always go back to Buffy. But I get, Wolverine, he kind of lives for a while, right? He's been around. And he can't die for the most part. He keeps coming back. Even when he ends up getting obliterated, they were bringing people back in Krakoa. So he ends up where I think that just is a good play of, I want to rest. I want to die eventually and just rest. But hey, I'll just keep going as we go, because then we go to the Pyramid of the Sun. And you end up having this quest going on, and that's where Rogue and Gambit show up. They're talking the whole Sugar. Hey, what's up, Sugar? I think at one point, actually, Wolverine says Sugar, too, which made me laugh. But they're there to see what's going on, and then you get a pretty cool look that there's a giant dragon
Very, very random thing I did not expect to be happening. A dragon,
and it's
on
a
top
dragon
of this.
that was in Savage Avengers, so you
I
have
guess,
that. But
nobody read that.
you don't really give a P-post. That's one that people bring up as like, that's his good book. I'm like, well,
It should have been the best book ever. Was the worst one.
People seem to like it for a while, and then I didn't hear anybody talking about it. But it was that idea of like, that's his best book. And I'm like, that's kind of that sort of tallest deal of the circus. I don't need that. But you end up where Logan's there, and they're like, hey, Sugar, here we go. Let's go fight this dragon. Again, I could tell you the scene here is that they do a lot of fighting with the dragon. They end up where Gambit, who he calls the thief, okay, he charges up some cards. Everybody's doing their thing. And Gambit's able to steal the other Eye of Agamotto. This guy has another thing, the shard, and is able to make a deal with them. This lasts 10 pages.
Yeah, at least.
It's only really at the end, and it's actually the eye and this piece, the shard, and says, hey, I got these things from you. You want them back? You have to go to Antarctica. Don't eat somebody for a year. Come back. And by the way, I also have Mona Boone. And you end up having this dragon go, oh, well, you're going to be in trouble. Watch out for the Endling. And so that's the big idea of this big bad, what they're going to deal with. Now, I will say also, I'm not a Gail Simone hater. I know some people, a lot of people might be. But when we get that point, even the Endling, and when we get the point of, oh, here we have, and he goes down, this dragon goes down and names the characters. I'm like, is this Jed McKay stuff? Like the idea of like, this is the thief. And this is the warrior. I'm like, I don't need
also what Incredible Hulk stuff. I mean,
it does that as well.
You said it, Eldest. You kept saying that.
Yeah, and that seems like that because that the thief, the hunter, and the scared little girl. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, we don't need that. Please, Gail, keep that away.
Yeah, are we going to get some crazy team that comes out of nowhere?
We might, though, because they're working together on the next book. So
that's true. So you end up, that is true. So you end up where, again, you have Wolverine's like, oh, my God, that's the Eye of Agamotto. And there we go. And you get typical Gail Simone references for H.R. Puffin stuff, things that probably nobody will get except
I like
me
H.R.
and you.
Puffin stuff.
I'm like, I like Sigmund and the Sea Monsters myself, but I like H.R. Puffin stuff. He kind of scared me, though. So at the end, they don't have to kill anything, and this dragon goes off. If I'm the dragon, I'd be more pissed than he was. But he flies off and says, I'll be back in a year. I'm wondering if we have to keep track of this and see if he does come back. But when they go, then you get Rogue and Gambit are going to make sweet love right there.
They don't care if Logan watches. He's just whatever.
Tell Logan he might want to turn away. He doesn't seem to, but then they don't make sweet love. And so they're also talking about all this stuff of Wolverine says, my cycle got burned. Can I hitch a ride? Yeah, but it'll cost. It's just, again, it is natural conversation deal, but I don't know that I need after a fight to have a bunch of panels are, can I hitch a ride? Hey, I got some booze. Did you call Kitty? Kitty doesn't want any parts of you. Let's call Scott. Scott thinks he's the leader. Nothing. Like, you're really not doing anything. All you're doing is showing different characters and things like that. And
you're eliminating questions that people might have.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I understand why, you know? But yeah, but it's, Scott's in Alaska. We kind of know that.
And Logan
but not
hates
everybody's reading. What's that?
Logan doesn't like him, too. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah, you get the classic stuff. And you get the classic, Wolverine costume there. It looks cool. And then, hey, Scott, what's doing? I'm doing work. All right. And they're like, I got something for you guys to do. Says, I hate to ask it, but I can't get away from the factory. And he requested you by name. It's all with Kurt. Says Kurt will be there. And this ends up in what is a Make-A-Wish deal. It kind of like pulls back of the big stuff to then go to this little kind of thing that's nice enough. But again, I think is extended. But then you go Pacific Northwest and you get this girl running who's basically Sweet Tooth. She's running around. She ends up getting caught by these hunters. I don't know what's going on really, but her name's Rosa. And they say, what's your real name? She says Fawn. And then you end up having a monster again, almost feels a bit like the Hulk stuff, but says, come to mommy.
Yeah.
All right. It says, Rosie, you little Fawn, come to me, come to mommy. And you're like, okay, I don't know what that is, but we'll see. Then we go off to, and there's a lot of scenes and they're extended. You go off to the University of Mississippi Medical Center. It is a children's hospital. One of the things I will say that I don't know that I was offended, but it was almost the idea of like, I hate hospitals and children's hospitals really suck. See, I understand what they're saying, but I'm like, That's pretty awful. My son was in the CHOP in Philadelphia, Children's Hospital, and was there for quite some time when he was born. One of my 5 sons who was born with a lot of problems. And that came up recently in a big fight with me and my wife. But you end up where, here's the deal. I couldn't sit there and watch the machines beeping and stuff like that. So I would walk around all day. I'd be walking around and I'd come in and check in.
Yeah,
well,
of course.
Little did I know, because I didn't know, and I wouldn't ask because it was a sensitive deal. And so I didn't know that they hadn't let my wife hold our son Ethan. The timing that I have is impeccable. I end up where I walk in right as they finally let her hold Ethan, mainly because they think he's going to die. I'm thinking that this is a regular thing, and I say, I'm hungry. Let's go to lunch. Nobody told me that anything different. They didn't say, oh, my God, this is something. And she had to put Ethan down thinking that I was demanding to go to lunch. I just thought it was lunch. And I thought she always held him. And when she came back, she could hold him. That was now 23 years ago. I hear about it twice a day. Yeah. Every day. I heard about it 7 times today.
You were just looking at your watch and it said 12 o'clock. You're ready to eat, whatever it was.
If somebody would have said, oh, my God, this is the first time I'm getting to hold him, and they think I would say, now, again, this would still be me. All right, well, I'm going to get pizza. I leave because I hate it being in there. But I still get crap. But they go and they're led to this kid's room. He's got some power, but they say it's very minor. But he's also got a brain tumor, and that ain't minor. He's going to die. And when they go in, he's their biggest fan. So you get, oh, my God, Rogue. Oh, my God, it's the X-Men, Gambit, Nightcrawler, Wolverine. I know all about you. Hey, Rogue, you're hot. Don't touch me, though.
The weird dialogue from that kid, though, man.
Yeah, again, he looks like he's 7.
He looks like he's like a manga or anime face, too.
He looks like One Punch Man as a kid. He's like, look at me. He's like, God, you are so hot. I wanted Nightcrawler to be like, thank you. But then they're like talking, and in that Rogue is taken to this kid. I mean, Rogue really is like, oh my God, she's already upset. The kid does die. He ends up having a problem, and when this happens, he kind of convulses. He goes into a seizure. And again, he had this like clairvoyant power, but it wasn't very big. But again, he says, they're coming. You have to help them. One of them is the Endling. So you get that combo. Now it means something. We don't know yet, but it's a big thing. And now he's saying you got to help him. And then he dies. And I mean, Rogue, at one point, I'm like, oh, look at that's not the mother. That's Rogue, who just can't stand it. I mean, I don't want to say too much about Rogue going too far with this kid dying, because it is a kid dying. But
it's pretty aggressive scene to have, actually. A kid dying in a cancer hospital or whatever this is.
It's funny. In my mind, you're like, we can't kill the dragon. Oh, a kid? Kill him. Yeah, kill him. As long as, really. As long as somebody isn't killing him. Like, Wolverine is, then it's fine, I guess. I even got the idea that she was playing with maybe the whole X gene caused the cancer. It was very odd the way it played, but you see the parents of this kid, they are not even reacting close to what Rogue did.
Are the parents there?
Yeah, at the end they're shaking hands. There's the guy there. They look older, too. I think maybe they should have stopped having kids at this point, but they end up where, hey, the parents thanked us profusely. But you couldn't think Rogue's there. Also, Rogue's like touching everybody.
So you're blaming the parents' age?
Yeah, I'm telling you, they weren't in good shape and they look very old. Idea there might be. I mean, I don't want to say anything about extra, X chromosomes in a book of the X-Men, but I don't know. So you end up where that whole thing went down, and then you go. But again, extended scene. Then we go, and it's like, hey, Kurt's going to go off, and we're going to go visit friends and drink. Extended scene of, what should we call ourselves? Should we still be the X-Men? Who's going to lead us? And they kept saying that it was Rogue. You should be the leader. Hey, I can't open this beer. It's some great beer from downtown. And Wolverine pops the cork, pops the claws. He gets that. That's when they call Kitty. Hey, Kitty, what up? You want to join us X-Men? No. It doesn't go well. She basically says, screw you and lose my number, and hangs up.
Where are those tattoos she had on her knuckles? I guess she got rid of those.
Yeah, I guess she did. She spent a lot of money getting rid of those. Ended up, it wasn't like the idea where Johnny Depp had Winona and turned it to Wino.
Yeah.
Both sus. But yeah, the whole thing, they're saying like, no, Scott. But Scott he's doing his thing. He's at the factory. No Scott, no Charles, no Kitty. How does it all end this way? And they're like, my love, we could do this, and I'll follow you to the end of the world, and here we go, and this is going to be great. Who's going to fill Chuck's chair? And they keep saying, Rogue, Rogue, Rogue. You should be it. I'd follow you anywhere. Please, Rogue, you do it. And then it kind of gets interrupted where you have help us, and we get a crew here.
Look at this
Holy
crew.
moly, you got, Goth Kid. I don't know. You got girl with shaking hands.
Vibro
I don't know.
hands.
We don't need that. She might get nickels on Sunday. You end up having somebody with a horse.
Horse girl. I kind of
know.
like that, though. She's got like I want to know about that horse.
The other one, I'm telling you, if they probably announce these names, like, he looks like somebody would be called actually Moonfire. That would be like but the opposite. The way his costume looks or whatever. And then it says next Endling. And I'm like, okay, well, if you get that going right away, I'm for it. But very odd. And then the next issue, you legitimately see like an X-Men portal opening up. Horse Girl, Goth Kid, Moonfire, and Shaky Hands come flying out. So
you got to give it to Gail Simone. To introduce 4 new characters in the first. It's interesting.
And the cliffhanger, Goth Kid. Look at that guy.
I know.
He's got like wrapped feet. Probably stink.
But his toes aren't wrapped, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They probably are.
He likes how the dirt feels on his toes.
But in that, I guess they're probably friends of Fauna. What was her name?
Yeah, they live in the woods or whatever.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're part of the woods people.
R.I.P. Fawn.
Fawn is done, and they probably live in tree houses and do that almost like the Ewoks. So we'll see.
The Lost Boys. Not the Lost. Yeah, what were those Peter Pan kids? The Lost Boys.
Yeah, they were the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
I prefer the movie The Lost Boys with the vampires, so they're still Lost Boys. When you end up where the funny thing of this is they basically, Rogue is like, oh my God, we can't be the X-Men. We don't have numbers. We don't have anybody. Nobody's around. Nobody wants to join. And then these schmucks come out of the woods. Hey, can you help us? And they're like, cha-ching. Like, we want to put you in these outfits immediately. And it looks like in the next cover, they do. Like, they're full out X-Men. So
and also remember, they're in Louisiana now. So it adds an extra level of sus to these guys.
Yeah, really. Look at that. I don't know. Goth Kid. Look at that guy. Look at that haircut. Crazy.
I don't know.
I don't mind the look of all, but I'm telling you, it's like, hey, horse girl, you're going to have to leave that horse outside. We're going into the diner. Like, this horse is going to get in the way. You're just going around with the horse all the time. She seems to be riding it in the thing, and it flies, maybe. I don't
It'd be funny if the horse was the mutant and that the girl was the
girl
horse.
Was just normal.
Yeah, she just couldn't talk or anything. She was like
so
the
what
horse.
You would say is like, man, what are you doing with that horse? And then the horse says, hey, watch it. She's my girlfriend. That'd be good. And then Goth Kid's like, whatevs. That's what he says.
That guy's straight out of a manga, right? That kid.
Yeah, look at him. He's like, did you see my bald brother? They're like, I'm saint to say he died.
It looks like the same kid wearing a wig.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe he's got a goth wig. But what would you give this?
I actually enjoyed this. I so far, I was kind of down on the X-Men stuff. I'm like basically ready to not read it anymore for whatever reason. Not, just because they're not interesting as much. But I'd give this one an 8. I liked it. It's a little long. It's a little long, but it was pretty funny.
I'd give it a 7.5. So I'm a little lower, but I get it. And,
you are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.